Depakote, which, could, of course, kill me tomorrow, but I'm serious. By the time they get done, everybody in the country is going to know we're being run by a bunch of completely deranged lunatics.
Well, here's a direct example. This was raised about Supreme Court Justice Roberts, and he being on, was it an anti-seizure medication, I believe?
That's right. Yeah.
And there were questions raised. I think it's legitimate to raise the question: did that affect his judgment? Did he flip-flop because of that? But not just him, and not just that issue, but all of the Supreme Court justices. I remember one of them was on chemotherapy at one point.
Which is like saying, we're attacking this justice with chemical warfare that we used in World War I.
Yes.
So, don't expect him to say anything that makes any sense.
I mean, even in the military, isn't there a procedure by which if a commander has lost his presence of mind and is no longer, quote, fit for command, that his subordinates can say, we're relieving you of duty, you're not fit for command? That should be invoked across, all of Washington, D.C. for all the people that are on these drugs that are altering their judgment, altering their memories and their behavior. I mean, we are a nation of druggies.
Absolutely. And Washington, D.C. is the medical drug capital of the world, especially the psychiatric drugs.
Yes.
On and on and on. So they've been infiltrated. If we look at this for what it really is, Mike, it's like chemical warfare. Okay, Washington, D.C. has been infiltrated. All of these people that work in Congress and various federal agencies and so on have been infiltrated by destructive chemicals that are in their systems every single day, every hour of every day. This is warfare. This is a tactic of warfare. And when you finally see it for what it is, then you begin to make sense out of what's happening to this country. Because as we started this with, in any sane country, all of these drug executives and more would be in jail for 20, 30, 50 years by
Absolutely.
now.
Hey, in China, they would be sentenced to death.
Yeah, exactly.
They would just take them out and shoot them in China. That's what they did to the manufacturer that put the melamine in the infant formula. They just executed them. I'm not saying I'm in favor of the death penalty because it's so corrupt, but I'm just saying that China doesn't mess around on those issues. China's obviously very corrupt in its own way, but to your point, you're correct. Why is nothing happening to these people? Check out this statement. This was in the BBC. GlaxoSmithKline said in a statement that it would pay the fines, the $3 billion fines, through, quote, existing cash resources. They have $3 billion just lying around.
Yeah, in the closet. Open the door over there and get out the $3 billion.
Yeah, and it's just a fraction. Oh, and here's the other thing. From this is Mr. Whitty, but I'm not making this up. Andrew Whitty, the chief executive of Glaxo, said, quote, "We have learned from the mistakes that were made." Yeah, you got caught. And, quote, "when necessary, we have removed employees who have engaged in misconduct."
Yeah.
So wait a minute. You defraud the government of hundreds of billions of dollars and somebody just loses a job over it? That's it?
Right.
But the company can keep doing business?
We've learned that when we get caught, we have to pay a fine. So we're going to be more devious now than we were before.
Yes.
I think that's what the statement means. That's what he's saying, basically.
That's what he's saying. But we got to move on to Merck. This is an even bigger, more outrageous issue in many ways. And I know you've already looked into this as well. Check this out. Merck virologist Stephen Crowling and Joan Wolchowski, trying to get that name right, they claimed in a 2010 False Claims Act document, which we've posted. I did a big write-up of this on naturalnews.com. That's on screen right now. And today's article's on Infowars.com as well. According to these virologists, Merck, quote, falsified test data to fabricate a vaccine efficacy rate of 95%. Turns out to be completely false, according to them. They spiked the blood test with animal antibodies in order to artificially inflate the appearance of immune system antibodies. Merck pressured the two virologists to, quote, participate in the fraud and the subsequent cover-up, that they used the falsified trial results to swindle the U.S. government out of hundreds of millions of dollars for a vaccine that does not provide adequate immunization, that they intimidated the scientists, threatened them with having to go to jail unless they stayed silent. And in doing all of this, Merck actually contributed to the spread of the outbreaks of mumps, which is, of course, the very thing that the CDC cites to push everybody to go get more vaccines. So you talk about a grand fraud, total runaway criminal scam. This is what's being described by these former employees. It is incredible. And everybody who went out there and got injected with the mumps vaccine, if this is all true, you got suckered. You got suckered big time. And once again, we were right, John. We were right. Don't get vaccinated. Right. It's a scam.
Completely. And not only were you cheated if you got the vaccine, but you can't sue the government.
Oh, no, they all have complete immunity.
Yeah, the drug companies, government immunity, right?
Yep.
All they can do is just sit there and say, well, we got cheated. Now, people have to understand that when they say that they used animal antibodies, just to give you a gross version of this, it would be like you make a solution in a laboratory in a dish and you say, okay, now we're trying to prove that the vaccine is really effective here, and so we want to see some real action in this liquid, but we don't see any. So obviously we failed. It's no good. So bring that big bowl over there of animal blood.
Yeah.
And just pour it in here and let's see if we can get some foam going. Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay, now we can prove that the vaccine is effective. That's basically what they did.
It is outright fabricated fraud. It's almost as if you faked your birth certificate and tried to pass it off as real.
Nobody would ever do that.
Nobody would do that in America. No. But check this out. According to these virologists, Merck's mumps viral strain is 45 years old. Here's the explanation from the complaint. For more than 30 years, Merck has had an exclusive license from the FDA to manufacture and sell the mumps vaccine in the U.S. The FDA first approved it in 1967. It was developed by Dr. Maurice Hilleman. You remember Hilleman? InfoWars has played the recordings of him and his crew laughing about all the cancer stealth viruses in the vaccines. At Merck's West Point research facility from the mumps virus that infected his 5-year-old daughter, Geraldine. Merck continues to use this, quote, Geraldine strain of the virus for its vaccine today. That means this mumps viral strain is 45 years old and it's been weakened through multiple generations of what's called passaging to have it prepped for processing into a vaccine. This is a total fraud. If this turns out to be absolutely true, it is a complete scientific fraud at every level. It's unbelievable.
They say all the time, oh, the viruses are mutating, they're changing. We have to completely revamp vaccines every year in order to keep up with this. But hold on, in the case of the mumps vaccine, we're quite sure that it's been the same virus without mutations for 45 years. And so we can use my daughter's virus and make the same vaccine over and over again. It's a lot less expensive. Who cares if it doesn't work or if it kills you? That's just the breaks. You can't sue us, so just shut up and take your vaccine.
Yeah, that's it. You got to get down to this. Think about all the doctors and all the so-called skeptics and science people who said, no, these vaccines are all perfectly safe and perfectly effective. It's the best science in the world. It's the gold standard of scientists. We wouldn't lie. We have PhDs. Oh, my God. Now they're all fools. They look like complete fools. I mean, the whole thing was fabricated, according to these two virologists. They've
even gone so far as to say that people like you and me are terrorists, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we must be info terrorists.
We're trying to get people not to take vaccines. And, of course, in doing that, we'll be destroying the entire country. So
yes.
But they have the science. I mean, it's rock solid. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, the whole mumps vaccine is a total fraud from the top down? Wait a minute. I think I have to take a vacation.
A medical farce is what I say. Yeah. So all of you people out there listening today on this Monday, if you have been vaccinated with MMR or a mumps vaccine made by Merck in the last, 45 years, you need to take a second look at who swindled you into that deal and what may have actually happened to you. Instead of being immune from the mumps, remember we talked about this. The Institute of Medicine put out a report that said one of the biggest side effects of the mumps vaccine is the mumps.
Correct.
So it's like,
correct. Otherwise,
this is comedy.
It's perfectly effective. I mean, aside from getting the mumps vaccine is a miracle. And
and you could have
it's
just
so
taken...
ridiculous when you start to pick this whole thing apart.
Oh man!
Right?
Oh man!
It's just, and then on top of this, what happened to Merck was, even when they took the big bowl of animal blood, so to speak, and poured it into the dish, the results were still not very good for them.
Right, they had to fake the results a second time.
No, we can't even, that fraud didn't work. So let's just conceal all of the findings that we've got up until now.
All right, we got to take a break.
We'll just lie about
We'll be right back, John.
Let's falsify the test
Stay with
data.
us, folks. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Oh, man. Folks. All right, we're continuing here. Wow, this has become comedy hour, and the comedy is in the fraud of the vaccine and all the people who fell for it, all the doctors, all the pharmacists, all the CDC officials. Hey, John, I got a Jeopardy quiz question for you. Where is the former president, the former head of the CDC who was running the CDC during all of this alleged fraud that went on with the fake vaccine? Where is she now? Let our audience know.
Couldn't be with a drug company, could it?
Of course not. That would be too funny.
That would never happen.
That would never happen to Dr. Julie Gerberding, who is now running one of the top vaccine companies' international divisions. But this is the thing. This is the thing. I guess if the lie is told by enough authorities and enough doctors with people with medical degrees, as my friend Robert Scott Bell likes to say, I guess the lie becomes reality. And then if the lab tests don't match the lie, they just spike it with some animal blood. They just they change the numbers, roll the dice, do whatever they want, invent something, send it over to the FDA, and sell it to 200 million American children. or all over the world. And it's probably not 200 million children, but 200 million Americans overall got these vaccines. So that's a big number. That's a lot of people who got hoodwinked.
Absolutely. That's what they do. They establish, okay, this is reality. Everybody's on board. Everybody knows we can't, rock the boat here because we've gone too far. So now if anything comes up that really contradicts what we've been saying here and claiming, we've got to lie about it. Everybody understand that? Everybody understands. Yes. Okay, let's move forward now. And that's what they do. And what they're taught and what they learn is how to sound like they know what they're talking about. Yeah. I mean, this is media, this is doctors, this is all of these people. Their main skill as far as dealing with people is, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I see people on television all the time talking about medical stuff. I mean, analysts and commentators like Bill Maher and so forth, as if they have the slightest idea what they're talking about. They have no clue. I mean, where are they getting their information from? You don't find them in medical libraries reading through studies and calling up researchers on the phone. They're just taking their clue from all of the other lying idiots and criminals who have access to and control the media, basically. And so we're pointing out here the lies and how deep they go. And they go all the way to the bottom. This rabbit hole has no bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, can you stay with us a little bit into the next hour, because there's still so much more to cover here. This is huge breaking news. This is, okay, now think about the application. Once we understand the depth of the fraud, and by the way, the mainstream media is practically refusing to cover this. You're only going to get this on places like InfoWars, Natural News, Drudge Report, places like that. But if this has been faked for the last at least 10 years, then now you got to look at all the mandatory vaccination policies that have been put into place, like in Texas, where before you go to a university, you have to be injected with the fake mumps vaccine. In California, the mandatory vaccines, don't these state governments now have to take a new look and say, wait a minute, how can we mandate something that's total fraud?
I bet they won't. I bet they'll just, oh, well, that was an interesting article. Okay, so let's get out the vaccines and, keep on. That's what they do, and then if you argue with them, they'll say, you know, you could be a terrorist.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, it's the end of sanity in America. It's the end of truth. It's the end of justice. The country's being run by total zombie, runaway, criminal-minded, insane